Hello guys, and welcome back to the second part of the matrix data structures. So in this video we're going to be talking about how to name matrices using the two methods that we discussed earlier, and then later on we're going to discuss on how to access and modify data elements that are stored in a matrix format. So let's get started on naming a matrix. As in the previous, I showed you that when you look at the call names, that is the column names of the matrix one, it is null, and the row names of the matrix one is also null. So let us give them some names. So let's get started. So when you look at mat one, let's see how it looks like. So it is a 2 by 2 matrix. So we're going to use the matrix function. So this is the matrix function to name the columns. So let's go back and pick this matrix one, then we come with it here. Let's paste it there. So this is the matrix function. So we normally have an option here called dime names. And dime names is normally it takes a list of two elements. Of course, the first one is going to be the row names, and the second is going to be the column names. So we're going to have a list. The first one, since it is a 2 by 2 matrix, let's just call this one row 1, and this other one you can call it row 2, and then the second one column is going to be called 1, and then call 2. So let's run that and see what happens. When you run it, then you run that one, you can see we have successfully renamed our two columns, successfully renamed using the matrix function. So when you are making a matrix, you can just decide to rename it, to just name it at this stage. So let's go to the second technique that you can also use using the call names and row names. So let's say, for instance, matrix. Let us just run it again. It's just like that. It is not named. So what about? Let's name it. So to name it, I'm just going to say call names, and then we call mat1. Going to assign it to a certain vector. Of course, this is going to be, these are the columns, so it's going to be call 1 and call 2. We run that, and then we call the row names mat1. We're going to define it as row 1 and row 2. When you look our mat1, it should be named as row 1, row 2, column 1, and column 2. So those are the two methods that you can use to rename your matrices. So let's continue, and so let me show you how you can access and modify data elements in a matrix. So let's say, for instance, in our matrix 1, what if you wanted to access this element that is found in row number 1 and column number 2? I want to access this element. How are you going to do that? So in this case, this is how you're going to access the data elements. So we have a variety of techniques that you can use. The first one is using the ij index, and I say that this just generally represents a raw call. Let's do that. It generally represents the row and column. So in mat1, let us try and access like this one here. Let's try and access the first Let me try and access row 1, column 1. So it's supposed to give us a 1. Yeah, but one thing you have to take note here is when you do that, it's returning a vector instead of a matrix. So how can you do to fix that? So in order to fix that, you can just add this function, just say drop equals to false, then it's going to give you a matrix. So you have accessed column row 1, column 1. So you can also access it depends with the data that you want. So if you want to access this one, it's going to be just row number 2, column number 2. If it's this one's going to be row number 2, column number 1. So you're just going to be keep on changing those two. But what if you wanted to access let's say we have a 3 by 3 matrix. Let's say we have a 3 by 3 matrix. Let us just create that one, 3 by 3, whereby you want to access like a continuous, like you want to access a certain number of columns, like from column number 2 to column number 3, or from row number 1 to row number 3, or maybe you want to access like row number 1 and number 3 only. How are you going to do that? So let's do that now. So let's add more data. So this is supposed to be 3 by 3. So that means it's going to have 9 data elements. So let's just add this. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's what I wanted. So what if I wanted to access I want to access only row number 1 and number 3. So I want to access row 1, row 1, 1 and 3, and then I also want to access column maybe column 2 and 3. So how are we going to do that? So to do that, just going to use subsetting functions. So I want to access row number 1. So we're just going to use a vector 1, 3, comma 2 and 3. So in this case, you can just do this 2 and 3. Then you have your vector. So we've accessed 1 and 3. 1, 3, 2, 3. So as you can see, 1 is 1. Row number. Okay. So another thing that you can do is you can maybe want to access let's say all the columns, all the data except row 1. Just going to pass this and access everything except row number 1. So we have dropped row number 1. This is our first row, it has been dropped. And then that's some of the things. So in this case here, just a minute. Yeah, it's okay. So another method that you can probably use to access information is you can use the character. You can use the characters. Let's say for instance you want to access the same using mat1. You can use the character. Of course, this one is applicable for named vectors or matrices, I mean. So mat1, let's see how it looks like. It's not named. Let's use this one. Let's use that one. So we want to access the first one. So the first column you can also use mat1, and then you can pass col1. Of course this is a column, so it's going to be that way. When you want to access column 1, so column 1, you're just only accessing column 1, that's why you have row 1 and row 2. If you want to access maybe row 1 and column 1, you can just pass the names of the names, and you have your data. You have your matrix, just row 1 and column number 1. So those are some of the methods that you can use. So what if you want to maybe modify it? I'm just going to do it faster because I can see time is really moving. So we can modify some of the modifying matrix. You can modify a matrix by transposing it. So you can just call it mat1 transpose. It's going to be using the t function. We pass it to mat1 t. So when you look at this, it has been, so transposing is just generally changing the rows into columns and the columns into rows. So when you run this mat1, as you can see here, we have the rows on this side and they have been changed into columns, and the columns have been changed into rows. So a transpose is changing the rows into columns. So another method that you can use to access is using the logical vector. And of course logical vector is just going to do mat1, and then I want to access whereby the value of mat1 is greater than 0, and it's going to give me that. So we have to do that. Drop, sorry, it's supposed to be here. So 0 is going to just return a vector. So it just works the same way. It's going to return true. So anything that is true is going to be printed out. So I demonstrated this earlier. So what if you want to, let's say we have your mat1 and you have to maybe eliminate maybe the first delete a row or a particular column. So you can just do that by doing mat1, and then you assign it to mat1, and then I want to delete the first row. Then your mat1 is going to be this, because I didn't want to have, I've just eliminated this row here. So that means the remaining is only row number 2. So as a bonus, you can also perform some arithmetic operations to matrices. Like let's say for example mat1. We can just go back and run this again so that you can have that one. So you can also perform some arithmetic calculations. Maybe you can multiply everything with 2. So all the elements within this matrix is going to be multiplied by 2. You can also divide it by 2 or by any number that you want, and every element is going to be divided by 2. You can also exponentiate it, and everything in the matrix is going to be you can also do a subtraction. So you can also perform arithmetic calculations in a matrix. So guys, that was all in this video, and we're done with matrices. So in the next video we're going to look at lists. So if you're new here, just subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get more content in this. Okay, thank you guys.